up on our season recap show of Club 904, we have reoccurring guest, Action Sports Jax, the one and only Dan Griffis, stopping by to crunch the final numbers from the Jaguars 2025 season. Don't worry, we are recording this ahead of time, so hopefully it doesn't age poorly. But we will also turn our attention to the coaching carousel, what it means for the Jaguars coordinators, Grant Udinski on the offensive side, Anthony Campanile on the defensive side, plus some other news and notes from around the league. A jam-packed, taped, and let's hope not outdated, Club 904 is going up on a Tuesday. What is going on, party people? Thanks for hanging out with us again. I know we're taping this podcast ahead of time. Let's hope it doesn't age too poorly. Mia O'Brien here on the Club 904 podcast, brought to you by the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe over at Action Sports Jax, wherever you are watching or consuming this podcast from. And if you're listening on demand, maybe you want to listen to it in audio form only at some point in time. You can check them out wherever you get your podcasts as well. Also, a reminder that you can subscribe to the Mo Bryan NFL Notebook. That is my personal site for all scoops, notebooks, reports. Our Discord chat is especially popping as that coaching carousel continues to spin around the National Football League. Free 7-day trial is ongoing. Subscriptions start at $5 per month. We're not here to do any of that, though. We're here to look back at a 13-4 campaign for the Big Cats and what it means for the Liam Cohen tenure in Jacksonville and what is ahead in 2026. But if we're going to talk numbers and cents, there's only one guy who we can bring into the club. He is Action Sports Jax, data scientist, analyst, journalist, whatever you want to call him, Dan Griffis. Running on 6 hours of sleep, but he's still ready and rearing to go in Club 904. Dan, how are you today?
Oh, we're I just came off of 2 back-to-back complete overnights, 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. So we're getting back to day life now. So we're a little tired, but I'm ready to go. It's certainly a fun season, and Jaguar fans are probably especially happy after a pretty solemn loss for the Houston Texans in the playoffs.
Hey, listen, the fact that the Texans lost, the Bears absurd, running around with house money. Caleb Williams is a freak. I will give my fellow consumer of Sugarcoat Nails in St. Johns County that. But yeah, no, the fact that the Ben Johnson machine has also found itself out of the postseason picture, I think gives Jaguar fans a little solace. But that Texans point especially, and something tells me that's going to come up a time or two in today's season recap program. Before we dive into today's agenda, Dan, your big picture thoughts over a week after the Jaguars' unfortunate one-and-done exit in the 2025-2026 playoff field, but a season that I would think you're going to tell me they can build upon.
Yeah, and before we go, like Jaguar specific, I think that Liam Cohen, Ben Johnson, and Mike Vrabel's success in their first seasons is a big reason as to why you've seen now 10 coaches be fired.
And one resigned. So, hey, we got 11 openings, and technically I think the Tomlin resigning was like 24 hours separated, 48 hours, because it was in the middle of the night from the Harbaugh to New York. So for all intents and purposes, we've had a third of the league open up this year.
Yeah, and I think it's a testament to the job that Liam Cohen, Ben Johnson, and Vrabel have done with the Jaguars, Bears, and Patriots of turning these teams around and making them instant successes after really, especially for the Jaguars and Bears, who've been bottom of the cellar teams for the majority of the last 15 years. And it's just 1 year. It's just getting one guy, the one right guy in the building who can make everyone else and bring in everyone else and to make them the right guys for the team. Also the Jaguars had fantastic success with James Gladstone. We give a lot of credence to Liam Cohen, and rightfully so. But like the midseason trade for Jacoby Myers, I'm sure that Liam Cohen obviously had a big part of that as well. But being able to make those tough decisions and have the want to go in, make a in-season trade and be like, hey, I think we can make this team even better and be a legit competitor in the playoffs.
But I was told that's just a bunch of young new age GMs playing fantasy football, Dan. The person who said that, by the way, got a promotion on Monday, but that's not here nor there. Sorry, Brandon Bean. You brought up Jacoby Myers. He's going to be included in today's program as we look back at the 2025 season that was in Duval County. A little bit of a roadmap for us. We, of course, will begin, since everything begins and ends, with the quarterback Trevor Lawrence before moving to some other players along the offensive line and the offense as a whole. We also will talk a little defense, and then we're going to put Dan through a little speed round here on Club 904 of keep them or let them walk. With that said, Dan, let's begin with the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. You tweeted this out last week after the Jaguars' playoff loss to the Bills, in which Trevor came up just shy of what would have been his 8th 250-yard, 2+ touchdown game. Your thoughts, big picture from 16 in 2025.
Yeah, some people say, well, you're including rushing into that. I say, who cares? It's I don't care how you score touchdowns if you score touchdowns. If you can move the team, the Jaguars averaged 32.2 points over the last 10 games. And, they have an 8-2 record over that time to show for it, with a really tough loss against a team who should not have been the 6th seed. The Bills are really, really good. I think we saw that against the Broncos. They hung in there against the best defense in the NFL. Maybe you can make an argument for the Texans, but regardless, the turnaround for Trevor Lawrence in the back half of the season, and truth be told, he was still a lot better in the beginning of the season than he was last season. You look back at that Niners game, he was really, really good. He wasn't what he became over the second half of the season, but he was still moving the ball for Jacksonville. And then just something in midseason, Jacoby Myers trade, Parker Washington really came alive for him, and the Jaguars, I think, really spread the ball out a lot more. I think it was like 5 straight weeks where the Jaguars had a different leading receiver down the back end stretch before Parker Washington just went beast mode in the last 4 games. But yeah, whether it's using his legs a lot more this season, I think he had a career high scramble rate. He obviously broke the Jaguars single season touchdowns record with 38 this season, his 3rd 4,000-yard season, and his 3rd winning season in the last 4 years. Assuming that he would have beat Carolina 2 years ago when he was injured. But it's a quarterback who we've seen recently. A lot of quarterbacks move on from whoever drafted them, and then are almost immediately successful on their next team. Whether it's, you look at a guy like Geno Smith, who's kind of thrown away by the Jets, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Daniel Jones this year, although that kind of ended a little more sour. But, there's a lot of guys who have really shown in that 4th, 5th, 6th season that they can do a lot more than maybe they initially did in their first contract with their team that drafted him. And I think that that's certainly the case that Trevor Lawrence, it finally took him a genius OC and some competent receivers and a competent O-line to really turn around. And he put probably the best season in Jaguars history at the quarterback position this season.
And I love that stat. And it's one that's pretty elementary, but in the reality and the grand scope of 31 years of this franchise, it's the most important number that you mentioned, Dan. This idea of Trevor Lawrence in 5 seasons has led the Jaguars to a winning record in 3 of them. Mm-hmm. Prior to his arrival in 2021, how many winning seasons did the Jaguars have this millennium, Dan?
4 or 5. I'd have to
05,
yeah,
07, 17.
I was thinking, I was 4 years old for 2000. I was thinking 2000.
Oh yeah, if you want to include 2000,
okay,
yes, that's true. So four. They had 4 winning seasons in 21 years before him, and people want to say that I don't know how good he is. If you ask me, maybe he's never going to be a top 3 quarterback in the league, but if he can be somewhere between 20 at his floor, and that's him playing the way he did perhaps in 2024, and 5th, 4th as his ceiling, you'd sign up for that every day and twice on Sunday.
He ties Mark Burnell for the most divisional championships as a Jaguars quarterback, and no Jaguars quarterback has won the AFC South more times than Trevor Lawrence. So there's a couple of more. Obviously he's got a long career ahead of him, and if he can keep that going, I think most if not all passing records for the Jaguars are going to be his.
What for you for Trevor? And I'm going to play the clip as well if I can. We're going to try to maneuver this in real time. But what for you is the next step for Trevor? Because I know Brent Martineau asked Liam Cohen at Jags All Access last Thursday, what's the next step in his development for him to really consume the playbook? What for you, Dan, is the next step for Trevor Lawrence in particular in this offense?
Yeah, I still think it's working on the easy stuff. The Jaguars really struggled in the screen game. That's something that they really wanted to do in the first half of the season. Didn't work at all, and then they just went away from that, and we're like, we're just going to throw it deep. And then once they got Jacoby Myers and Parker Washington going, it was a lot of in-breaking stuff, which is awesome. But I still think that there's times where like you'll have an easy like flat route pass or stuff like that where he throws it and maybe it doesn't have the best target location or whatever, and it makes it to where the receiver either isn't able to bring it in or isn't able to do a lot with it afterwards. I still think like in breaking routes and deep stuff, he's still as good as it gets in the NFL. I would also like to see him continue his use of his legs, whether it's running outright or making plays. I think that's something that was paramount in his turnaround in the second half of the season. I think that's a big reason why, in addition to the aforementioned Parker Washington and Jacoby Myers. But I think it also should be said that the O-line was definitely worse in the second half of the season than they were in the. They started out really like, among the best offensive lines in the NFL. I will say it got better with Cole Van Lanen at left tackle, but it wasn't the first like 5-6 weeks. They were about the best in the NFL, both rushing and receiving, rushing and passing. So I do think that it allowed him to be creative as a runner. You get to make more plays when you're under pressure. That's why I don't know if I'll say that this season quarterbacks had more success the longer the play went. Usually it's like sacks, interceptions, like coverage sacks, stuff like that. But this season EPA went up the longer the quarterback had the ball, which is kind of which is kind of why like Campanile had so much success, is because the Jaguars really want the ball out as fast as possible. Them and the Browns were 1-2 in average time to throw, or the lowest time to throw. And then quarterbacks hold the ball more. It's turning into something that is less successful. So that it's Trevor Lawrence. I don't think certainly he didn't play a part of that, but I think that's an area that I'd like to see Trevor continue to utilize. He did a lot better of it this season. Last season, outside of the pocket, he was 7 of 29. Not 25, but 24, and that's like putrid. That's 28%, something like that.
Yeah,
it's or even lower than that. So that, he did a lot better with that this season. The beginning of the season, he was bottom 5 in EPA outside of the pocket, and then he was top 10 to end the season. So it's like the continued story of Trevor Lawrence is consistently inconsistent. But if we can get the last 10 games of Trevor going forward, it's going to be the best ever for Jacksonville.
A lot that you brought up there that we're going to dive into, especially the Jacoby Myers of it all, the offensive line. I do want to note, unable to download the interview that Brent did with Liam Cohen after Jags All Access, but if you head on over to the Action Sports Jax YouTube channel, maybe that's where you're watching this live, or over on the Twitter side of things, you can watch that 3-minute interview live on demand right now as we speak. Back to today's rundown, Dan, and let's continue with the offense, but let's turn to those wide receivers. Jacoby Myers, and to your point, obviously the acquisition of him at the trade deadline was something that I think was noted as, necessary with the season-ending injury to Travis Hunter. I don't know if in the moment people realized how game-changing it would be to the structure and overall infrastructure of the ecosystem in Jacksonville. But here we are. He had almost 500 yards just with the Jaguars alone. And yes, James Gladstone made the point in his season-ending presser that they had 3 receivers, 700 some odd yards, even if, a chunk of Jacoby Myers's took place with the Las Vegas Raiders, but who's counting? Where do you want to start, Jacoby, or do you want to start with Parker and that euphoric finish to the 2025 campaign that has a lot of people stumping for him to get a contract extension ASAP?
Yeah, we can start with Parker. I think I'm sure Parker right now wants to get extended because he's, this is the biggest high of his career. But you look at that play in particular, and I'll bring it up. That game, he had the most yards after catch over expectations of any game in the NFL this season. And he finished 8th over the season. But it was this particular game that was like, okay, that was really the game that put Parker Washington on the map, I think, for the majority of the rest of the NFL. And then it was just this for the rest of the season for Jacksonville. He was tied for 7th in contested catches this year with 17, which is really funny because he's not that big of a guy.
Nope.
And it's funny how a smaller slot receiver has really turned into being this like really hard-nosed, tough, make you miss guy. And it's not many guys that are that good at contested catches and that good at yak.
Well, it's funny because I don't want to like hit a man while he's down, but like Christian Kirk made that argument while he was here in Jacksonville. He's like, I can do more. I can play all 3 wide receiver positions. Look at me. I can make contested catches. And ultimately, when the Jaguars moved on from Christian Kirk, the thought was, well, that's fine. That's the whole reason you drafted Parker Washington. And even if Trent Baalke had stayed the GM, they probably would have made that move at some point anyways. And so Parker Washington was always the logical successor. But there's also a lot of folks looking around and saying, he's probably better than Christian Kirk as of this writing.
Yeah, and Christian Kirk never went on this stretch for the Jaguars, and the Jaguars get a cheaper, better version of Christian Kirk without really the injury concerns that Kirk had in Jacksonville. God bless Christian Kirk. Hopefully that continues. I'm sorry, Parker Washington, or both of them for that matter.
Yeah, hopefully they both do it. But to your point, yes, continue.
450 yards and 3 touchdowns over the last 4 games. That's including his another great game against the Bills. And heck, he missed a decent portion of that game in the Jaguars locker room. Yeah. And 10th in EPA on in-breaking routes. He really hit the duo of him and Jacoby Myers really opened that up for Jacksonville. I think that that was an area that the Jaguars sorely missed in the last few seasons, especially last year. I think they were 29th or 30th attacking the middle of the field, and then this season, it's guys running wide ass open, whether it's Parker Washington or Jacoby Myers, and Trevor Lawrence is there to hit them. Unfortunately, the last one against the Bills wasn't wide open, but the duo of them have done so much, and then you have BTJ to stretch the field. And I'll add that Parker Washington was 12th on outbreaking routes, something that he had a lot of success with against Denver. The Jaguars had to find a way to attack Denver's number 1, number 2 ranked defense, and Parker Washington was the answer.
And I think that it's interesting you bring up the middle of the field just because there were questions going into the season of, can Trevor see the middle of the field? Is that why the Jaguars are 29th, 30th in that category in 2024? Which is hilarious because you look back to 2022 and when that team was operating on all cylinders and clicking on all cylinders, where was Christian Kirk getting the bulk of his targets? Where was Evan Ingram getting the bulk of his targets? It wasn't along the sideline. I can tell you that. It was over the middle of the field. And they just didn't have the horses for courses once Kirk went down with that injury in 2023, 2024 injury to him and Ingram as well early on in the season. And so I think now you have multiple receivers once again who are unafraid to go over the middle of the field, which allows for Trevor Lawrence's skill set to not only be exemplified, but also Liam Cohen in that Rams style where you need, look at this list, the folks, for those of you watching live, or if you're watching on demand, as opposed to listening on audio, this was Dan's stat that he brought up from Next Gen Stats about the receiver EPA on in-breaking routes. Here are this is what, the top 10, Dan? Yeah. So Parker Washington is 10th. Puka Nacua is 1. Jamison Williams is 2. George Pickens, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Nico Collins, Zay Flowers, Jaden Higgins, Jamar Chase, Chris Olave, and then Parker Washington. But Puka is number 1, Dan, over Jamison Williams by almost 20 percentage points. Like, the Rams-style receiver needs to be unafraid to run that in-breaking route, which is part of the Brian Thomas Jr. of it all, which we'll get to here in just a second, but also needs to be that player who can flex inside and outside, unafraid to block, do the dirty work, win at the contested catch point. Maybe they are not that sexy, trendy number 1 wide receiver name like some of these other names on the list, but that doesn't discredit the value of having that sort of skill set like Parker Washington does. And he's proven that he can be one of these guys on this list.
Yeah, I think it also just adds another area of the Jaguars offense that wasn't there, that makes them extra scary. You know, previously it wasn't something that you had to worry about really all that much. And then you add in, you know, Jacoby Myers and Parker Washington over the middle of the field, this like deep digs and deep crossers. It's like, oh, okay, they're attacking the middle of the field a lot now. And it like almost looked Detroit Lions-esque in there. Ben Johnson loves those deep crossers, whether it's Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jamison Williams, who's second on this list. It's like, okay, this looks wildly different, which is really strange for an offense to do in the middle of the season. They were like so screen heavy, where it was like almost 20% of their pass attempts or screens to start the year, and then this back half of the year was okay. We're running deep digs across the middle of the field, and we're gonna have our 2 best catchers go catch the ball and tough, whether it's tough or it's wide open. And you know, I think that's really something that Parker Washington has shown his versatility, and just the ability to make tough catches, I think, is what really gives him an edge for both Jacksonville and Jaguar fans as to why he's so beloved in Jacksonville. The Jaguars have struggled over the course of Trevor Lawrence's entire career catching the football. And Parker Washington looks to be, and Jacoby look to be those guys that really make it look effortless. And, you know, Parker struggled as well with drops at the beginning of the season, but over the last 10 games, he's been among the best receivers in the NFL, especially the last 4 games.
Just imagine if he hadn't gone to Chad Hall in training camp in 2024 and said, I can flex inside and outside. Let me learn the Z. Let me learn the X. And here we are. They needed him in the backstretch of 2024 because they ran out of bodies for McCorkle Jones, and they needed him to play all 3 positions in 2025 because that is what Liam Cohen's offense demands of wide receivers. Before we put a bow on the wide receiver conversation, Dan, your thoughts. Build a wide receiver room for me. Build what this passing game will look like in 2026. Who plays what role? And in turn, who are you bringing in? Who are you maybe sending away?
I'm mostly fine with the top 4 that the Jaguars have with BTJ, Parker Washington, Jacoby Myers, and then you have Travis Hunter. And the Jaguars saw really, really good things. It was like a blip right before he went down, and of them similar to like Parker Washington or to where it's like, oh, we finally put him in a system where he can thrive, and then it's like injury. It's like, God, he's another guy that is really, really good at making people miss. He was top 15 almost for the entirety of the season and missed tackles forced, and he didn't play half the season. So I think if the Jaguars just are a little less forced in getting the like screen plays was a lot of his targets or flat plays, stuff like that. I think that the Jaguars finally started to use him. And you saw the contested catches from him against the San Francisco 49ers. That singular play won the Jaguars the game.
Yep.
That was their last touchdown drive of that game. It was on 3rd and 20 or whatever it was.
And Travis Hunter, unafraid to go up over the middle and make the catch. And I think that's when, for a lot of people, the light went off and it was like, okay, maybe he is actually that guy that this offense needs to be predicated around, not Brian Thomas Jr. So to that end, like, so you believe, and I think we've talked about this before, you're on team Travis needs to be cornerback 1, right? Or are you not?
I think he should play more corner than wide receiver next season.
Okay. So that gives us that flexibility. So we're not going to do, much like James Gladstone said, we're not going to do wide receiver 1, 2, 3, but X, Z, slot, Where do you line these guys up? Who are those 5th and 6th wide receivers if Travis Hunter is your 4?
Yeah, Parker's probably Parker. I mean, the Jaguar BTJ is also. I think all the Jaguars can play inside and outside. BTJ's had
Which is good.
a lot of success in the slot, particularly last season. He led the NFL in slot touchdowns. By last season, I mean 24. Jacoby Myers has been. That's part of the reason the Jaguars got Jacoby Myers is because of his flexibility inside and outside. The Jaguars had a lot of injuries at the time, and they weren't certain. They were trying to make a playoff run, and it's like, all right, we need a guy who could be flexible in both. I'd probably have Parker primarily in the slot over those two. There's probably Jacoby Z, BTJX, roll for there. It might be that next season. As quickly as the NFL changes, it might be that BTJ is the guy that sees a lot of success next year. I think that, this is certainly an offense that is very week to week as to who's going to go win you the game this week. Few weeks it was BTJ. A few weeks it was like the Kansas City game or the Houston game. BTJ makes 2 huge catches that puts the Jaguars in position to go win the game. Some games it was Parker Washington, some games it was Jacoby Myers. Hell, some games it was Travis Etienne at receiver. So we were talking about receiving success. Travis Etienne had as much success as anybody out of the backfield.
Had as much success receiving this year as he did his 3 previous seasons combined.
Yeah. And that's something that the Jaguars really like to do. Started to show that they like to do in the red zone, particularly. That's probably the 4 receivers, Travis Hunter as your 4. And I think that he can do a lot as well, versatility wise.
Because he can play all 3.
Yeah. And
the thing with
tremendous
him,
deep threat as well.
Right. And that's the thing. At Colorado, we saw the deep threat ability. They were very transparent with us from the jump that Travis Hunter was going to learn the slot, and that was going to be his position, his rookie campaign, and then they would build upon it. You could already see the returns of clearly they were teaching him the Z, or at least some semblance of a modified playbook for that Rams game, and then coming out of the bye week prior to the freak injury at practice on Halloween or the day before Halloween. And so that's why I have hope that he is going to fit that Rams mold of he can play all 3 positions. He is a willing blocker. He will go over the middle of the field. And I think that, to your point, there's a good chance that not only Brian Thomas Jr. is even more inspired to bounce back in year 3, but I think that he truly is the field stretcher that in James Gladstone's dream, De'Ami Brown was going to be that designated field stretcher. We're going to do our speed round coming up in a little bit. And when we do that, Dan, I'm curious if you think the Jags wide receiver room does need another field stretcher in addition to those 4 receivers that we mentioned. But for the sake of time, let's keep it moving. Let's get to the final note you have on the offensive side of the ball, which is that offensive line. James Gladstone, very forthcoming, perhaps, unless it's coded at the season-ending presser. He said, we're in a good position because every offensive lineman who is currently on the team will be back next year. And some people read that as, all right, they're not trading Walker Little. He's going to be on the team. Some people read that as, ooh, he's shopping Walker Little. Maybe he's shopping someone else along the O-line. But your thoughts in particular, that left tackle position before we look at the O-line as a whole, which you noted was statistically one of the best units in the league the first 6 weeks of the season, not so much down the rest of the way.
Yeah, it wasn't like and I say that it's not like they were awful. It's they're still fine. I think
they were running the ball at like such a clip the first 3 weeks in particular that it just wasn't sustainable.
Yeah, and then it got pretty ugly at the back, like the last 4. They did okay against it's the Colts, and then they did well obviously against Buffalo. It's just like how do you win this week, Jacksonville? Or how do you blow somebody out this week, Jacksonville? Which is really funny that as well as the Jaguars' deep passing game was doing, they kind of struggled to run the ball. I know that they did have more people in the box on average, and maybe that's why the Jaguars' offensive passing success was so great. But looking at the pressure rates here, Colvin Lannon did really, really well at tackle. And I think that, obviously his versatility, but the problem is his versatility kind of goes away if he's not a backup. if
Right.
he's your starting left tackle, then the versatility is not so much of a talking point anymore, which is great for him and the Jaguars. You know, if you get a top 35, top 40 offensive tackle in the NFL at left tackle, that's probably going to be good enough for you. Anton Harrison played really well this season. Ezra Cleveland played really well again this season. I think that right guard is probably your position that they signed McCary to a pretty big deal. But if there's going to be competition, I think it's at right guard going into 2025. I think we saw nice things out of Jonah Monheim. You still got Robert Hainsey there at center, but God forbid if Hainsey goes down, you could throw Jonah Monheim in there, and I think that you probably feel pretty confident, as well as maybe you found your center of the future. And Monheim's another guy who can play all across the line. He did so at USC.
And then, of course, comes the question of Walker Little. Will he be traded or not? Do you move him to right guard because he had success there through the last 3 weeks of the season in lieu of Patrick McCarry's injury? And so, again, it is January 19th as we record this, January 20th, as many of you are watching it. So we do not have a crystal ball. There's only one human being on the earth who has one, and his name is Doug Peterson, and he's somewhere playing golf in Jupiter right now.
I'm sure they're open to it.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they would be open to it.
Well, because they've been so forthright of like, they just want to play the best five like that. If it's the best five, that's who they want to see. But who do you think that, because McCarry also has 5 position versatility, and one way or another, he or Walker Little is not starting next year. If Cole Van Lannon is your starting left tackle, which, by the way, in preparation for this podcast, I was just perusing the internet, Twitter searched Cole's name. I'm still getting a kick out of the Chad Forbes of the world, who are like, oh my God, his agent deserves a gold medal for how they maneuvered this, like 12 career starts and this much guaranteed money. Do you realize how much money he was going to make on the open market? Like, the Jags weren't dumb. Like, they knew he was going to be the most sought after offensive lineman at any of the 5 positions. And so they said, you know what? We're going to give you the money now, so we don't even have to get into a bidding war with other teams. And we recognize that 5 position versatility. And so to that point, one of those 3 guys, and injuries do happen, and 2022 in Los Angeles clearly affected Liam Cohen and James Gladstone in more ways than one, because they were a part of that operation that I think they started like 13 or 14 different offensive linemen or whatever it was. Like, yes, in a perfect world, one of those highly paid offensive linemen is going to be on the bench. Who is it, Dan? Or it could be 2 of them. You could float a trade. I mean, but I don't know if they want to, because they're so worried about depth.
I like Walker Little at right guard.
Okay, there it is. And I'm takes out of you, Griffis. Come on now.
It's funny because I don't post. I save opinions, I guess, more for. I don't post a whole lot of opinions.
Yeah, you post a lot of data because you're the data bank. So
there's so many people who post opinions. So, and that's not, I was like, all right, I don't want to be just like another guy with like hot takes posting for clicks. So I was like, all right, how can I be like useful to Jaguars fans or the NFL or media people? And it's like, all right, I'll just post numbers, and I'll post back-to-back things from one guy that one of them's positive, one of them's negative, and then somebody's like, oh, you're just hating on whatever. And I was like, I just posted this yesterday. So, I just want to give like as much context and well-roundedness to a player or a team as I can, particularly obviously for Jacksonville, the primary team that I cover. But I think also giving coverage of the rest of the NFL provides context. Like, hey, how are other teams winning? Or why are the Jaguars not successful? Well, they're 32nd in motion percentage or play action or whatever. Last season was pretty tough to end the season or slants and crossers last season, where they just like completely went away from it. And we talked earlier about the in-breaking routes, but I like Walker Little at right guard. I'm fine if they move on from somebody. I think that gives James Gladstone probably more versatility in the draft. If you want to go get some guys that you really, really like, young players in college, that you can maybe grow coming in. But also, I probably, how long? Chad Muma was just 1 year
for the Jags.
Yeah.
No, he was here. He was in Trayvon's draft.
Not
class.
Chad Muma, Chuma Doga. I don't know why I said-
Oh, it was a
yeah, I
2-year
don't-
deal, but they'll get out from underneath. Yeah, that was a 2-year deal, but they'll get out from underneath that. Yes. Nope, you're good. Hey, shout out to Chad Muma. He's playing in an AFC title game next week.
I know. Yeah.
Talk about a blow up out here.
I saw his name earlier, and their names are just so similar that I said Chad Muma. No, Chuma Doga. You probably
Move on from that one. Yeah.
Look to bring in a young guy to maybe take that fourth tackle spot or extra 6th lineman, whatever it may be. If somebody goes down, probably Jaguars fans didn't think that Monheim would get to play. Also, don't forget Wyatt Milam, who the Jaguars,
right. And that's who was the sixth eligible offensive lineman down the home stretch of the season. And we can't also forget that Ezra Cleveland will be in the final year of his 3-year extension in 2026. And so while Walker Little will be in year 2, Cole Van Lannon will be in year 1 of their extensions. I mean, you're going to have that succession plan for Ezra at left guard unless you're extending him, which he was statistically one of your better offensive linemen this year.
Yeah, there's not really a way out, sorry, Jaguars fans, for the Walker Little contract at the moment. I think it's like 18 million or something in dead cap. I don't.
Well, I think Macari's is like 14. So that's one way or another. You're going to have one of these highly paid guys who's not playing. And the Jags don't seem to care because they just want to have available bodies, which that's what good franchises do. They have depth. Dan, we're going to take a quick timeout just because I want to make sure we hit our commercial. Then you good to come on back?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, good. We're going to come on back. We're going to talk defense briefly. Then we're going to do our little speed round here on a Tuesday edition of Club 904.
People helping people. It's at the core of what Alive Credit Union is all about, and it's been that way for over 70 years. From the start in 1954 to today, the mission remains to inspire financial wellness and give you a financially fit lifestyle. Alive Credit Union and its employees are committed to not only serving their valued members, but also our community here in Northeast Florida. I had a chance to see that commitment firsthand as Alive partnered with our Action Sports Jax 24/7 team to bring you Armada men's and women's soccer broadcasts. Inside the 18, it is a shot, and it's a goal! Chloe Chivers. And that connection to the community continues with Alive Credit Union's support of the Police Athletic League of Jacksonville. Alive Credit Union's commitment to our community also involves serving the financial needs of all first responders through the recent merger partnership with City and Police Federal Credit Union. Join the community and become a member of Alive Credit Union today. Find out the many ways you can be inspired in financial wellness at alivecu.coop.
Most of us know how to throw. But you need to know what to throw. I'm not talking about footballs, baseballs, softballs. We're talking about those items you need to recycle. Republic Services explains it easy. Recycling simplified. 1. Know what to throw. When in doubt, throw it out. 2. Empty, clean, and dry those materials. It takes an extra minute, but it makes a big difference. And 3. Don't bag it. This makes the recycling process faster and more efficient. This is a look at the Republic Services North Florida Recycling Center. You can make this process even more efficient. By utilizing those 3 steps, Republic Services can help you become a better recycler in your home. Learn more at recyclingsimplified.com.
If you look good, you feel good. And the medical professionals here at Ponte Vedra Vein and Aesthetics are here to make you feel your best. I'm on camera every week, and I have a confession to make. I'm not always confident in my appearance. Can you see my dark circles? Is my makeup highlighting my fine lines instead of covering them up? I question it all. So when I found out about the wide variety of procedures here at Ponte Vedra Vein and Aesthetics, I knew help was just one appointment away. Medical Director Dr. Megan Deacon Casey and her board-certified physicians have been using the latest in cutting-edge technology for the last 10 years, giving men and women their personal confidence boost. From Botox, fillers, Morpheus 8, and so much more. The hardest part was figuring out what I needed. Thankfully, the medical team walked me through what would work best for me through a free consultation. Come look and feel your best with the team here at Ponte Vedra Vein and Aesthetics. Visit them at one of their 2 locations, either over in Ponte Vedra or on the south side.
I blew past a couple of those commercial breaks in some earlier podcasts this month. So we got to make sure we give love to the sponsors of the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network. Thanks for hanging out with us. Club 904, Dan Griffis with us here for just a little bit more in the data bank. Dan, you tell me you have some important numbers on the defensive side of the ball you want to incorporate into our season in review show. Tell us, because for those who may be joining us late in this live telecast, these were some of the offensive numbers that we ran through. Defensively, what was your biggest impression with Anthony Campanile's defense in year one?
Yeah, I think I talked about it earlier. Forcing teams to get the ball out quick is a really big one. A lot of people point to the Jaguars' pressure rate numbers, and they're not that high.
There may or may not have been a debate about this online with Josh Hines-Allen and some Twitter users this weekend.
Yes. So they were 23rd in pressure rate. They were 29th in sack rate. But what I will add is they pressured teams the 7th fastest in the NFL. And, blitzing is obviously something that Campanile likes to do. Jaguars saw a lot of success out of it. They're 4th in EPA when blitzing. I think they were 2nd in EPA, third in EPA overall. Something that the Jaguars really like to do in order to force the ball out quick. But something I will add was really the deterioration of the interior pass rush after the injury to Eric Armstead. Armstead was having a career resurgence in Jacksonville this year. From weeks 1 to 12, he was almost averaging 4 pressures a game. He had 5.5 sacks. And then after that injury, he only averaged 1.33 pressures per game and had 0 sacks over those last 7-8 weeks. That's not something that you really. The Jaguars didn't have a guy next to him or other than him in the interior to really take that load. And the Jaguars over the last 5 games were 32nd pressures with 12 on the interior and 32nd in sacks with 0. I think that's something that really hurt them. It was kind of covered up because the Jaguars were just blowing teams out over the last several weeks. But I think that's something that really hurt them against Buffalo, and that's kind of something that wasn't really talked about because the Jaguars were having so much success. Trayvon Walker fought injuries all season. I fully expect a bounce back from him next season. I still think Josh Hines-Allen is one of the best NFL pass rushers. To give some stats for him, he was 2nd in pressures this year via PFF, 7th in pass rush win rate. He's still as good as it gets. People say, "Oh, the sacks weren't there." He was tied for the NFL lead in turnovers caused by pressure. Do you want the sacks or do you want the turnovers? So that's something for him. But I think the interior pass rush right now is interior pressure is probably the Jaguars' number 1 need going into next season. I think that every other spot, I think the Jaguars are fairly comfortable. O-lines solid enough. Receivers really came out strong. You really like the 4 that they have. ETN's. Tootin ran really well.
Think about him. Stick a pin in him. We're going to come back to him.
Continue,
Dan.
But Jaguars secondary, I think is good. We have to have a conversation about Montaric Brown, but as well as Devin Lloyd. But I think that they have answers to every position right now, or could have answers to every position, except for defensive tackle. Devon Hamilton's still one of the best run stuffing defensive nose tackles in the NFL. But it's with Armstead's injury and that ugly second half of the season for the Jaguars' interior pass rush is my number 1 concern for the Jags right now.
Start studying up on those defensive tackles in the NFL draft. I'm told it's a relatively deep, especially on day 2 crop of prospects in that department, which plays right into the Jaguars' hand heading into 2026. Speaking of 2026, I told you to stick a pin in Travis Etienne because it's time for a little speed round of keep 'em or let them walk here on Club 904, Dan. So I'm going to run through the Jaguars' pending free agents, and you're going to tell me whether, if you are James Gladstone and Tony Boselli and Liam Cohen, you are re-signing this individual, tagging them, whatever you want to do, or are you letting them test the waters of free agency? And then you could give a 1-sentence clarifier, but we're going to run through a couple of names here. Are you ready? He's nodding, so I think that means he's ready. He's got his game face on, folks. All right, Dan. Devin Lloyd.
Probably walk.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, I'd like to keep all of these guys, but probably walk.
Okay. Probably walk for Devin Lloyd. Travis Etienne.
I would really like to keep on a short year contract if at all possible. I'm not sure, it's tough to say what the numbers will be. I really like the Jaguars' depth at running back with Tootin and LaQuint Allen, especially LaQuint Allen's versatility out of the backfield as a pass protector, but I'd like to keep Etienne still.
Franchise tag for either or no?
Etienne, I'd be more open to it for Etienne than Lloyd. I really like the Jaguars' depth at linebacker.
Buster Brown.
I think that if I had to keep one of them, I'd pick Buster Brown.
Okay. All right.
I think that the Jaguars' secondary would be pretty holy without Monteric Brown. You bring back Travis Hunter, sure, but you have two guys who thrive in the slot. Outside of that, I don't have as much faith in Christian Braswell as I do the depth at the other positions. I think that Monteric Brown's definitely the cheapest of the three. So I think that he would be my easy re-sign. And I think you still have flexibility outside of him to use on Etienne, probably.
De'Ami Brown. He's not even going to answer that one. He just kind of nodded.
No, I'm sorry, De'Ami. I felt really bad when he got that first touch in like 4 or 5 weeks, and then it was a fumble, and I was like, gosh, he's a guy that
good dude, man. Enjoyed his time here. He was a good dude, but it was a 1-year gamble on a player that James Gladstone really liked in the pre-draft process.
Didn't end up working.
Didn't work out. That's why you sign 1-year deals. Emmanuel Agba.
No. I think he was actually dead last in pass rush win rate out of like over 100 edges this season.
Well, guess what? You signed 2 undrafted free agent kids, and the reson that Agba
they played both well.
Right. So that's a good thing. I mean,
Strigow was PFF's number 2 UDFA, second highest graded UDFA out of this year.
File that one away, folks. Here's a tough one. Emotionally, Dewey Wingard.
I would probably say that for me, Wingard's years in Duval are probably done.
His watch has ended.
Yeah, whether the Jaguars have a lot of bodies in that safety room that I really like right now. Eric Murray played well this season. Antonio Johnson was 6th in coverage EPA. He was one of the best statistical safeties. Now, when you become a starter and that becomes over a lot of, obviously that's going to go down, but he was a playmaker for the Jaguars all season. Did really, really well for a guy that had a strong rookie campaign. Didn't have a strong last season, but really came back this year, played really, really well. Also, you have Ransall coming back.
And the expectation is Ransall would start next to Murray and then Antonio Johnson, perhaps that third safety for 1 more year. Greg Newsome.
No, I definitely, if I had to pick between Monteric Brown and Newsome, I'm taking Monteric Brown.
Maybe you net a comp pick, even if it's like a 5th or a 6th for Newsome. We'll see what happens on that.
I still think he's a fine player. It's just like it was a really tough transition, I think he could still have success elsewhere. I really like Tyson Campbell as well before the Jaguars let Campbell go. I'd take Monteric over Greg Newsome.
Couple more to get to in this lightning round, Dan, but I will say there's 2 coming up that I think are very interesting conversations, including this next one. Tim Patrick.
Sure. Yeah, I'm fine with bringing it back. Yeah, a really good blocker. Jaguars really like to do a lot still in the screen game. I think that makes him even more valuable. The Jaguars harped on how much receiving blocking mattered this season in terms of their rushing success. Yeah, with that. He also outperformed expectations as a receiver this season. He had 3 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns.
He's your 5. Like my thing is if he is regarded by ball knowers in the league and players as one of the best pros at any position. So if he's your 5, that's a luxury, and he can play special teams. Come on now, come on down, Tim Patrick. I say you bring him back. And look, if you strike gold and you end up finding 2 wide receivers in the draft that you're oh, okay, these 2 guys got to play. And Josh Cephas is coming back off season-ending injury. We want him on the roster. If that happens, that's a good problem. Then you can always flip Tim Patrick for a 6, just like you acquired him for prior to the start of the 2025 season. Austin Johnson, DeJuan Smoot. Going to put these 2 together as we go a little bit faster.
I'm fine without either.
Let them both walk.
Yeah.
It's okay. Smoot will still be in the city, folks. He's not going anywhere. Dennis Gardick.
I'd be fine either way. I really like Gardeck. I think that he played really, really well. It's just tough because he probably didn't get as many snaps as his play maybe warranted this season, and that's just kind of the sad state of the NFL with so much nickel and dime packages. I think he offered the Jaguars a lot of versatility as a blitzing linebacker, but I think the Jaguars probably need more help with every more traditional edge rushers than blitzing linebackers. But I thought he had a great year in Jacksonville this season.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what the market dictates for him. And my opinion is they're going to let him see what his market is, and then maybe bring him back around April when off-season workouts can officially begin in earnest. Last one, DJ Dallas. And in my opinion, Dan, that one kind of ties into what are you doing with Travis Etienne?
I would agree. Yeah.
You're going to draft a running back on day 3, come hell or come high water.
Yeah, and I haven't looked at the rest of the free agent running back class, whether you pick up one of the smaller market guys to maybe bring in.
Maybe somebody who's a pending free agent down in Tampa Town?
Yeah, well, because without ATN, it's a really young running back group. But you got Tootin and your two I'll say starting because Quentin Allen starts on third down. But your two top backs are both second-year players without much playtime, mind you. It's not if Tootin was the starter for the entirety of the season, it's be all right, you have a little more. But I will say that that Tootin was 12th, I think, this season among the top 60 running backs in broken tackle percentage. He was 16th in yards after contact. So I thought that he did really, really well as a runner. And then we obviously saw the success that LaQuint Allen had chipping and pass protection. But yeah, I'm whether it's DJ Dallas or whether it's another smaller market running back this free agency class, I'm fine with either.
And of course, as James Gladstone said, Kyron Williams, Quentin Lake, they got those nice shiny extensions out there in LA. Neither played that much their rookie campaigns. So, hey, who's to say that Bashal Tootin, Jack Kaiser, Jalen McLeod couldn't have a breakout 2026 year? I'm safe in saying, and I want to put it on the record, I think 2025 was Dan Griffis' breakout year, at least here in the first season of the Club 904 podcast. We appreciate you hopping on each and every week, if not every week, then every other week or thereabouts, to give us the very latest when it comes to all the number crunching and what have you. Do you have any plans for the off season, any projects that you'd like to promote before we get you on out of here?
Yeah, I'm about to start positional reviews for the season. So that'll be 11. You got quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive tackles, interior O-line, edge, interior D-line, linebacker, corner, safety. And then I'll probably go into the Jaguars free agents before free agency hits as well, taking a look at all those guys. As well as some rookie reviews for the guys that did play. Jaguars will almost have 2 rookie classes this season with about as much as their current 2025 class played. A lot of guys that the Jaguars really, really like that didn't get the chance to play, whether it's McLeod, Jack Kaiser didn't play too much. But Raywan Lane, I really liked his safety this season, and as a gunner, played fantastic as a gunner. So there's a lot of potential for the Jaguars to have 20 plus guys that are really going to make their debut in Jacksonville next season. And then we'll probably dive into some draft and free agency stuff when that hits.
I like that. Well, when that comes out, we know that you will be hopefully available to join us on Club 904 to break down some of those positional rankings, the draft boards, and much, much more. Appreciate you and your friendship, Dan. Keep up the great work. We will talk very soon, friend.
Thank you, Mia.
There he goes, the one, the only Dan Griffis. Appreciate Dan hanging out with us for a little bit longer than I had told him he would be for this season in review, numbers edition, data bank edition episode of Club 904. Before we get out of here, just want to give a couple closing thoughts with the coaching carousel continuing to swirl. We are recording this again on Monday, January 19th. It's about 2:15 p.m. Eastern right now. Anthony Campanile was the mystery 16th candidate requested by the Baltimore Ravens. Kevin Stefanski, of course, has been hired as the coach of the Falcons. And so when you take one out, put in the other, 16 candidates for the Ravens successor to John Harbaugh. And I went on a couple Ravens programs already, and I tried to tell him what you all want me to say, which is he's awful. Why would you want him? I worried about Miami when camp was requested there because John Eric Sullivan, the new GM, was with him in Green Bay as well. The Campanellis still have a house in Miami. He has a great affinity for that franchise, spent time under 2 head coaches there. But when you look at what the Baltimore Ravens stand for and where they want to get back to, I like the fit, but I don't want camp to go. I don't think any of you listening do as well. So hopefully they get in the Jesse Minter race a little bit earlier than, say, the Las Vegas Raiders, who I think have an opportunity to swoop right in and steal him from underneath the Ravens' feet, his former employer. Although Anthony Weaver, another former Ravens employee, was requested this morning for a second-round interview with the Ravens. We will see if the same is said for Campanile. Grant Udinski, second-round interview with the Cleveland Browns, scheduled for this week. He's one of 6 known candidates to have a second-round interview. Sounds like that'll be later this week. I have been told by enough folks that, Jim Schwartz is not just getting a second interview for lip service. People in that building love him. They do not want to lose him. And so unless you can get a young offensive whiz kid to come aboard, take over the offense, agree to work with Jim, the great DC, I think you just hire Jim, you make him the full-timer, and what? If you fire him in 2-3 years because it doesn't work out, well, you're firing Andrew Berry too, and you're clearing house, and then the deck is reset completely from both sides. So personally, I think that's the way they go. I do believe Nate Shieldhouse will be hired somewhere this cycle, not just because he's had more interviews than seemingly anyone requested and come his way, the Rams passing game coordinator, but also because I just think that leader of men, young, offensive-minded, new generation guy, he checks a lot of boxes. And so I could see him, Chris Shula in Pittsburgh, of course, the Brian Flores of it all makes it rather interesting as well. So with that said, let's close with this thought. Liam Cohen had 3 finalists for his offense coordinator job for his first ever OC as the head coach of the Jaguars. Number 1 was Grant Udinski, who got the job. Number 2 was Nate Shieldhouse, who opted to stay in LA, but has now been requested by 7 teams to interview for their head coaching vacancy. And number 3, Tavita Pritchard, is now the head coach of Stanford. That is where if Grant do get another job, I have confidence that Liam Cohen will be able to find his next great coordinators with the Jacksonville Jaguars. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Our thanks again to Dan Griffis for joining us on this episode of Club 904. Schedule moving forward. We will be live every Tuesday unless we have to record like today's episode. On Tuesdays, re-air Thursday, available on demand as soon as we get off the air on Tuesdays. We do have some other projects in the works, both in Jaguars land and beyond at Action Sports Jax, so keep it locked right here. And of course, over at the Mo Bryan NFL Notebook and at Mia O'Brien TV on X. Until next Tuesday, we will catch you later.